What's up, Chuckers? Producer Mike here. This is Served 5 Setter, your weekly roundup of all things Racket Sports, 5 stories in 10 minutes or less. Before we get into it, please hit subscribe on YouTube and give us a follow on your favorite podcast platform so you can stay up to date on all things served. We appreciate the love and support. That said, today is March 13th, 2026. And here's what we got for you. Double cha-ching. Where did all the fans go? Familiar waters. And Federer spelled with a B. But first, big trouble in Little Palm Springs. Yes, we are in the midst of Indian Wells, aka tennis paradise, but for some, it has not been all rainbows and butterflies. Deepest of eye rolls aside, we have seen some players getting into it with the fans early at Indian Wells this year. Starting off with the defending champion, 18-year-old Mira Andreeva, who let the emotions get the best of her on several occasions while playing unseeded Katerina Siniakova. After dropping the second set tiebreak, Andreeva smashed her racket, earning a code violation, and things only escalated from there. After losing the match, the defending champ Andreeva left the court yelling curse words at the crowd who had been booing her throughout the match. An expletive that started with F, ended with a CK, and was followed by a U. Apparently, it was very clearly heard by this pearl grabber, a woman who was in the first few rows that reacted like any mother would. In her post-match press conference, Andreeva acknowledged that she is not proud of how she handled the situation, saying that this is something that she needs to work on. On the ATP side of the event, another top 10 player got into it with the crowd. World number 2 Jannik Sinner had an issue with a specific fan during his fourth-round match against João Fonseca. Sinner was serving to stay in the first set when a front-row spectator kept talking during his serve. Sinner turned around and confronted the heckler, prompting boos from the crowd and forcing chair umpire Greg Allensworth, who actually stepped down from his chair to address the situation. Here's where things got a little funny. Olympic skier Nicholas Novak, who was sitting 2 seats away from the heckler, had to take to social media to clear his name after fans mistakenly identified him as the troublemaker. He posted, quote, "The guy in the black with the long hair kept heckling Sinner whenever Sinner was right next to him, taunting him whenever he got quiet, yelled and asked why he lost doubles yesterday, then taunted him whenever he would make a mistake, and kept talking even when being confronted. I was stressed." Well, guys, I'm glad that we cleared that up and that it was in fact Timu-looking Josh Brolin and not a fellow athlete. Despite the heckling, Sinner kept his composure and won the match in 2 tiebreaks, 7-6, 7-6. But guess what, guys? Fans are not the only ones getting into hot water with the players. One particular umpire has drawn heat for shot clock issues from these stars.
I think Fergus gave me 2 or 3 times in my life a time violation, and I always went nuts because sometimes you play Rafa, you play, Sasha Novak takes some time to prepare for serve. And of course you play them sometimes with a different umpire, but I would love to see Fergus. I cannot play Rafa anymore, but if he would make like 10 times time violation to Rafa, because like you need to have some common sense sometimes.
On top of that sound from Medi on Saturday last week, Taylor Fritz had this quote saying, "I've always had an issue with specifically Fergus starting the clock super fast. And I've never gotten called for time violations, and no one ever got called for time violations against me. But then there was probably 10 in total in my matches when he was in the chair. And then it started just being automatic. Like when the point ends, it just starts. It's not really up to the umpire." All of this is coming after major headlines a few weeks ago when Carlos Alcaraz blew up against an umpire in Doha for giving him a time violation while going to the towel. And Terence Ottman getting a time violation during match point in Acapulco, which in fact lost him the match. I guess that lends to the question, will players learn to adapt to the inconsistent serve clock? Or will new rules be put into place? This is a story we will continue to track. Finally, on to set number 2. More news out of Indian Wells, and for Techie Sean and myself, this is breaking news. First up, the Eisenhower Cup. For the second consecutive year, Taylor Fritz and Elena Rybakina won the $200,000 winner-take-all exhibition, defeating Lerner Tien and Amanda Anisimova 10-7 in the final. That is $200,000 for a mixed doubles exhibition, Chuckers. But that is not even the biggest mixed doubles money story out of Indian Wells this year. The official 2026 BNP Paribas Open mixed doubles tournament purse has been increased to a whopping $1 million. Nearly triple the $370,000 purse from 2025 and almost 7 times the $150,000 purse from 2024. The draw has also expanded from 12 teams to 16. This has drawn some bigger names into mixed doubles draw, something the US Open proved last year just flat out works for the fans. Now for set number 3, the last bit of news out of Indian Wells. While watching a match last night with my wife, we were a bit confused about all the fans, or I'd say lack thereof of all the fans in Stadium 2 while Rybakina was playing. As you can see from videos and pictures, if we were to say that there are hundreds of people watching this match, that would be a stretch. So this morning, when I asked newsletter Megan about this, she told me that the tournament changed its ticketing policy. In past years, a grounds pass would get you into the upper bowl of Stadium 2. Apparently not anymore. The entire Stadium 2 is now reserved seating, meaning you need a separate and apparently pricier ticket to get in. The result? Half-empty stands for marquee matchups. We're talking about world number 5 Daniil Medvedev playing in what looks like a ghost town. But here's the kicker. The rest of the grounds are more packed than ever. Indian Wells set a single-day attendance record of more than 58,000 fans on the first Friday. The demand is clearly there. They just locked the fans out of one of the best stadiums. When asked about the situation, an Indian Wells spokesperson told Front Office Sports that they will carefully evaluate the decision after the tournament wraps. Let's hope they do, because the atmosphere matters, especially for the players. Nobody wants to play a big match in an empty house. Now, from big stadiums to small ones. Set number 4 starts with a shout out to 19-year-old Anna Leigh Waters, who picked up yet another triple crown this week at the PPA Newport Beach Open, continuing what is starting to feel like her permanent residency at the top of pickleball. For the uninitiated, which is me and also Techie Sean, newsletter Megan explained to me that a triple crown means winning all 3 pro events in the same tournament. That means singles, doubles, and mixed doubles. In Newport Beach, Waters took the singles title, partnered with Anna Bright to win the women's double, and teamed up once again with Ben Johns to capture mixed doubles. Kind of seems unfair with that roster. At this point, it is less of a headline and more of a weekly programming note. Anna Leigh Waters wins everything. Staying with the small paddles, across England this week, something unusual happened. In schools, office buildings, sports halls, and community centers, people picked up their table tennis paddles and started rallying. The goal was simple: keep the ball going. By the end of the day, more than 200,000 rallies have been played across the country as part of Britain's Greatest Rally, a nationwide event organized by Table Tennis England. The celebration marked 50 days until the 2026 ITTF World Team Table Tennis Championships, which will return to London from April 28th to May 10th. The tournament also marks the centennial edition of the event. The very first World Table Tennis Championships were held in London in 1926, making this year's tournament a 100-year milestone for the sport. I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty amped when I get fed table tennis ridiculousness in my feeds. Shout out to Adam Bobrow. If you know, you know. And on to our final set, and it is another headline from Roger Federer, who has officially moved onto the Forbes World's Billionaires list with an estimated net worth of $1.1 billion. Yowza. Federer, who will be inducted into the Hall of Fame this summer, retired in 2022. During his 24-year career, he earned some $130 million in prize money, and at his peak was earning around $100 million a year in endorsements. However, it isn't the straight cash that gets him on this list. It is his 3% stake in Swiss athletic apparel company On, the running shoe brand. On went public in 2021 and now has a market cap of nearly $15 billion. That investment alone is worth hundreds of millions. Federer joins a small list of elite athletes on the Forbes rankings, including LeBron James, Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, and one Magic Johnson. But he isn't the only former professional tennis player, and that brings us to this week's tiebreak trivia. This week's question: which International Tennis Hall of Famer is ranked higher than Roger Federer on the 2026 Forbes Billionaire list? Sign up for the 5-Setter newsletter to find the answer. And while you're there, check out the latest news from Indian Wells that happened overnight and what has happened in the rest of the Racket Sports, including a major international debut for one of America's biggest pickleball stars. I think we spoke about her earlier. For the full breakdown, head to servedpodcast.com or find us on Substack. Hit subscribe on YouTube or follow us on your favorite podcast platform. As always, a big thanks to the team for pulling this together. This has been a production of Served Media, and I will see you chuckers on Tuesday.